Welcome back to Your Tech Report.
Should you be using a VPN 24/7? What about bring your own devices? Companies that embrace that are actually posing a security risk? Well, hopefully this conversation will answer those questions for you. And our guest, John Papadakis, who's the CEO of Acronym Solutions. John, thank you so much for being with us this week. It's so exciting to have you here and talk about this.
And it's a pleasure being on this with you, Mark.
It's a pleasure to have you, John. Can we start by giving our audience a little bit of a backstory here? Because Acronym has a pretty cool, interesting story. Can you give us the rundown on how things have evolved, what the company's mission is today, and what we're going to talk about today?
Excellent. Thank you for the opportunity. So the company has been around for over 25 years. It started as a telecommunications provider known as Hydro One Telecom. So think of it back in those days, although it doesn't seem that long ago, utilities had assets and they spun off various telecommunication providers known as UTelcos. So this company was created to provide predominantly connectivity and bandwidth solutions to businesses. And as it grew and as it morphed, it continued to do more in that and expanded throughout different verticals. I came on board in 2019, and prior to that, I had a vision that this was such a powerful asset to have and such an opportunity in the Canadian landscape that this company should become an ICT company, an information and communication technology company. So really, in today's world, telecommunication companies, as they were otherwise known, are really ICT solutions providers because the IT world and the telecom world have become one. And so our pivot was to create solutions for businesses. Acronym is purely a B2B player. So we provide a layered approach to services in the ICT realm. Still connectivity and bandwidth on our own assets, unique assets, is a key part of what we do, but we've layered on that cloud-based services, managed services, security-based services, collaboration services, what companies are really telling us they want. So very focused again on the business space and providing solutions that matter to them. The key for us, Mark, is to be the alternative provider to the obvious big three. And in this landscape, we've done a phenomenal job at continuing to grow our business and become that alternative for those customers. And most of our customers have been with us right from the inception.
This is, it's an interesting space to be in, especially in, I think, 2025 now. We're going to dive into, obviously, some cybersecurity stuff eventually. But, how it used to be that when you were a telecom provider of some kind in Canada, let's talk about Canada here, that you had to rely on those big three. You had to rely on their infrastructure and various things from them. Is that not the case anymore? Is there enough infrastructure that allows you to actually do things on your own?
So the world of relying on each other will continue because it makes no sense to invest billions of dollars of your own assets each time just so that you can have a unique presence in a particular area. All of us wholesale off of each other in some scenario or form. So those big three, they buy from us, I buy from them. And so we kind of coexist and co-compete, if I may, in that realm. Now, in our case, the beauty is that we're owned by Hydro One and we have our own assets, over 9,000 kilometer strands of fiber across Ontario. And so a lot of the solution that we provide to our businesses are on our own unique assets. Partly by Acronym or utilizing the fiber assets of our parent. And where we need to provide solutions where we're not present, we will do an analysis of whether we should build or basically, again, wholesale off of one of the providers. And they do exactly the same. That's the realm we all live in.
Back, I'm going to go back in time here. I guess it was around 2005. XM Canada was launching, and we had to figure out, okay, let's get infrastructure in place to be able to connect with parent companies in Washington, D.C. and New York. So we had this giant pipe that was installed, and I remember every time something went down, we probably spent more time trying to figure out where the issue was, where the interconnect was, what random provider in the middle was the one or the culprit, whatever it is, a cable unplugged or something like that. And I remember it took longer just to trace things like that. And I guess that's where, we're still going to be at the mercy of all these interconnects and cross connects and stuff like that. But are we in a better place now? I mean, that was 20 years ago, right? Are we in a better place now when it comes to businesses setting up infrastructure where it's easier to mitigate issues like that? And because, I mean, we're mission critical now in terms of infrastructure, right? Whether we're remotely distributed or in offices. Are we in a better place now?
Excellent question. I spent, not to date myself, let's just say 25 plus years. I end at the plus sign.
Okay.
In this industry, wireless, wireline, data, you name it, on all sides of the equation. I firmly believe we are better overall as a society in having infrastructure that can support our needs. Companies have moved away from utilizing singular vendors. They become smart about diversity, triversity, what I even say quadriversity, and really to protect their business and their assets. So the beauty, again, of what we offer as Acronym is we do have our own unique assets, and customers love that. But they also know at the end of the day, it's going to be about what do we do when things do happen to make sure that we mitigate their risk and we mitigate their downtime or anything of that nature. As we're going to go and chat a little bit about cyber, as you said, it's about how you respond and how do you mitigate rather than whether things will happen. I remember, by the way, the time that you launched in 2005. It was a pretty monumental time, and of course, having assets relying on somebody else is where you have to, again, plan properly with your right partners. And that's kind of the differentiation for us as Acronym.
Yeah, I kind of learned the hard way because I was pretty involved in the infrastructure then. And all of this was very new to me. And I learned, not the hard way, but I guess, trial by fire. Sometimes you got to dive in head first to realize how complicated it is. It's not just like, hey, I just need a line to there, just throw a cable in under the ocean. It doesn't work
Absolutely.
that way. Again, before we dive into cyber for a second, because I'm just kind of really curious about wireless for a second here. I mean, because especially since COVID, everybody's so distributed. Obviously, you guys are in a position where you were prepared for that kind of situation, but suddenly we're bringing in, internet ISPs and the consumer connections. How does that play into solutions that you provide, or even the wireless side of things? How do people make sure their employees, no matter where they are in the world, can still get into the proper infrastructure they need, the proper VPNs, the proper, lockdown networks they need to be able to do their job? Yeah,
excellent. So for us, we look at all access technologies as a part of a solution. And so whether it's wireless, whether it is a form of wireless like microwave, even though as old as it's been around, it's still utilized.
Still there, yeah.
Whether it's LEO in terms of low orbiting satellite that you get our friend Musk and others that through Starlink and so forth, or whether it's pure solid fiber connectivity, it's all part of the solutions that we look at. It's pretty tough to replace fiber in terms of reliability and and bandwidth and things of that nature. But as technology evolves, we're less about the technology and more around the resilience and the future proofing of the solution that we provide. So if you're a business, you can't think about the now. So if the now is, look, I've got a combination of fiber, maybe a little bit of wireless, and maybe a little bit of LEO. The question is, how do you future-proof your business as you go 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now? And so the connectivity component is one. Behind that, though, is about data governance, data transport, data security, and one might say data is information, right? So let's just call it information, yeah. All of the above, right?
Yeah.
So for us, this is where we sit down with customers and really say, okay, what is your end goal? What are you trying to be in your landscape? That is, don't solution for me what you think you need. Why are you in the business that you're in? What's your goal? How do we help you get there? And then you design solutions behind that involve, network and network resiliency and redundancy. But then again, the aspects which are really more software based around security and some of the tools that we all use, including now. I mean, we're in a hybrid environment, for example. When I go home, I have to be just as secure tying into our network or any customer of ours as if I'm right now behind the LAN that I'm using. So it's all part of the solution. And it starts with understanding what the customer is, what their goals and objectives are, and the current state, i.e. the as is, and we then help design the future state.
Let's pivot to cybersecurity for a second, because you kind of bring us there quite nicely here. It kind of feels like we're almost at a never-ending arms race when it comes to security. What are some of the biggest threats businesses should be worrying about right now? Is it hijacking data? Is it just, people looking over our shoulder? Like, what are the biggest threats that we need to be concerned about?
It's everything. And Mark, I'm not an overly paranoid individual, but the paranoia is also a good feature for all of us to have as business owners. The reality is that today's world is far more complex, and especially in the realm of cybersecurity, we all have to realize that there's no end game. There's no finish line. I mean, this is becoming more and more pivotal to your survival as a business, and it should be part of how you differentiate yourself in the business that you're in. And if you look at some of the things that are happening, you don't have to go far. You turn on your streaming service or your traditional cable service or whatever, and you'll hear every day about either a breach, an attack, and or some way that all of us are affected. So, the kind of things that we're seeing obviously are, the traditional DDoS attacks and data breaches, which continue to be a big part of the business world. I think, I read something recently that, the average data breach in Canada cost a staggering, $6.32 million or something thereabouts, and it continues to increase. But here's some realities. This is at a global and country level. Like, espionage and eavesdropping is happening at all levels. State sponsored, and they have unlimited resources to attack a business. And they will attack it for all sorts of reasons, because there's, geopolitical reasons, financial reasons, being a technological leader by stealing somebody else's IP. I can go on, and that's happening. And if you look at, again, by turning on those devices, you hear even stuff like, the Huaweis of the world, now the TikToks, and the concern around TikTok and all the things that go that way. So eavesdropping, cyber espionage, data breaches, simple stuff like denial of service. And all those things are continuing and will continue to be a key part of what you need to think of as a company. And that's where, what we talk about as Acronym is, how do we help companies get ahead of that, like transform themselves to use that as a differentiating factor in putting in the measures you need so that you minimize and mitigate. You'll never totally, I hate to say this, but you'll never totally escape the realm of being a potential target, right? The sophistication is way beyond most companies. It's a reality. So build it into your culture and make it as part of your DNA.
I think there's a misconception out there that this is a concern for large corporations. And there are business owners that are one people to two persons that should be as concerned about this as everybody else is. How do you advise companies like that, or just try to at least educate people that, to realize, just because you're one employee or just because you're two employees, you've got data that's important to you. So you need to take measures to protect that.
It's a great point. I mean, look at it on a personal level. What would it mean to you if you were hacked, either in your financial applications or somebody steals all your memories? All your memories, your photos, your whatever it is. And I'm not trying to be trivial in it, but at a personal level, if anybody's gone through a form of attack, it could be quite damaging. If you take it into the Soho, small office, home office, it's no different. But now your business, as well as you, are exposed, and it could paralyze you. It could actually take you out of business depending on the nature of the, of the attack. When today's cyber attacks are starting to use AI. I mean, I heard something astonishing, like 40% plus of the more sophisticated attacks are utilizing AI. You don't even have, the remote individual in some foreign country saying, nah, I'm just going to hack into Mark's, business. This is, tools that are very sophisticated that will do that. So it's devastating at all levels. And so you have to think about it at all levels and try to put in measures, including, first of all, make it part of your culture, whether that culture is you as an individual, whether that culture is you and a few others that are part of your business, or whether that culture is a 9,000 employee company. Start by educating. Mistakes tend to happen by people, not by technology. Okay, technology will break, Mark. You know that. We started off with trying to get onto this, but we had a solution. But most of the attacks are because people are uninformed or allow things to happen either through phishing or through unsecure devices or things that they use. So, I've noticed some interesting things in the space that we're in. Culture comes first, but there's also some stuff that companies are doing around what is known as CTEM, like continuous threat exposure management, where basically they put in a program that allows, health checkups on your digital ecosystem. And then you look at what kind of attacks are more likely to impact you, and then you have a routine process in place to deal with it. And so, this is where you need reliable providers to have that dialogue, human-centric design, Mark. And what I mean by that is, you've got a certain set of things as a business that you might go through as your daily routine. How do you embed them in your workflows? How do you embed security as part of your workflow? And, the tools that people use at home. So again, you're working from home. Let's say you tap into your company's networks. The obvious ones are, multi-stage authentication and VPNs and things of that nature. But even the tools themselves that you use, if you're using off-the-shelf type stuff, non-cloud-based, collaborative from big companies that have embedded security features in there, you're likely exposed, right? And so there's a lot of ways a company can look at the how and the what they use to bring themselves to a different level.
Is it expensive? Like, give me, from the small business perspective, I think a lot of people don't even, they assume they're untouchable, or they're like, oh, my data is not that important. If it goes away, it goes away. I'm not going to spend the money. It's going to cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars to protect myself. That's a fallacy?
Yeah. I mean, there's a solution for all levels of companies. There's a solution for all levels of individuals and how they conduct their business. There are fantastic tools out there. And again, it's not just the tools. It's a multi-stage security mindset.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so you build on that, but there are tools for all levels and at all sizes. And it's not expensive. What's more expensive is if you were one of those 6.32 million worth of ransomware, and it doesn't, and if you're a smaller business, obviously, a business that does a couple of million a year, they can take you out of business, period. How expensive is spending a few $1,000s on some tools and some training? So I think I think there's a solution for all levels. And this is what we spend time with our customers, because our customers are different sizes as well. We're typically in the upper end of mid up to large, but we do come down in the smaller, the SMB space, and we work at all levels to put such solutions.
Are there any common mistakes that you see that are probably more prominent than others that companies are making today? And we had talked about, of course, the education side. I think a lot of companies are spending a lot of time in educating their employees. And while employees, I think, dismiss it sometimes and say, why do I have to do this again? Like, it's important. Like, I know it's important. And I try to tell those people who come to me complaining about stuff, I'm like, guys, just do it, because you're educating yourself. You may not realize what you're doing, but your awareness is going to be higher. You're going to realize that there's a phishing email coming in. And just because you think you're impervious to it doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. But is there a common mistake that you see where a bigger common mistake that people, just for some reason don't get past?
So the education, of course, I continue to harp on it because I do think it starts there, and you're bang on, Mark. That is sound advice, and if you do everything else but that, you're going to still be vulnerable, right? So it does start there. I do think though that part of the other mistakes that I'm seeing as companies is, let's talk about a financial one, right? Yeah. You've got a budget. You build your budget around what you think your business is in, and then you tend to downplay the security investment, just like you downplay whether you need more marketing dollars or not, right? I mean, it's got to be part of your risk and mitigation. The other part of it is that very point. So when something happens, mistake of a lot of companies, they don't have a disaster recovery plan. They don't have a mitigation plan. They don't have a, oh my God, what do I do plan in order to react. And then I think another component is keep your people informed. Don't make a mistake of, this is the security group, no one else shall know about security. Totally wrong. Everybody plays a role. And so beyond education, everybody should have in their mindset that, I got to be on alert. Not only am I on alert, how do I proactively within what I do look for these things? And then when I find them, what's my action plan that we developed as a company to react to it, right? There's no worse case than paralysis when something happens. That means you're unprepared. So lack of preparation is just as important of ignorance or not investing upfront.
Well said. We talked about AI making attacks more complicated, and they're being used, everywhere, from just phone calls that you're getting that could potentially be, fake. We have a safe word in our house now, so that if someone calls and asks something that seems in any way, shape, or form suspicious, we can actually try to identify that and mitigate that. Something I never would have thought I'd have to do, honestly, 5 years ago, but it's getting that good, which is great. But on the flip side, are you finding that AI is helping you in your day-to-day create new tools and ways to help educate or help mitigate these risks?
Absolutely. That's the beauty of AI. Don't look at it as purely a threat. This is a great opportunity for businesses to utilize AI to make faster, sounder decisions, and therefore protect themselves better than just the human factor. We're embedding that in the way we do analysis. We embed it in the way we do security assessments. Utilize the tools as a positive, not just a negative in how others are using it to potentially attack you. I think as it evolves, there'll be more and more adoption because people will get more educated, right? It's kind of like other nomenclature. Everybody picks up. My mother-in-law goes, "What's AI, John?" How do you explain what AI is to my mother-in-law? But the fact that she's even aware that, she's a very bright lady, by the way, but I'm just saying the fact that she's aware that this is part of dialogue in everything that we do. I think every one of us should get more and more educated and then utilize the tool. Now, I do think that as companies mature, they need to also be careful to the degree of utilization to replace sound practices. There's still sound practices that go hand in hand in how you run business. And AI is not going to replace that. And it's not going to replace all human factors that come into that are part of business. Utilize it. We do.
Where would a company start? I'm starting a new company or I'm an existing company and I'm realizing, okay, I need to start doing something. I'm educating my employees. We're a small business. Everybody's, the spidey senses are up. What's the next step for me?
So I do think, and this is not a sales pitch, this is just my belief. Because
listen, we're not here to sell, we're here to educate, right?
Yeah. So the education part is, whoever that is, whether it's Acronym or somebody that's sound in this space and spends time in the business world, reach out, have the dialogue, get educated, then make a decision on whether that partnership is the one you will have trust in, because now you're opening everything to a partnership, to have trust in that it will help you get to that level of both growing in the space that you're in and defending that growth while you do it. So I think that's a great starting point. There's way too much. I mean, the world that we're in, no one can keep up unless you're in that world, right? A lot of our customers, and this is a big selling point when we talk about services and managed services and that, they're not in the space to know AI. They're not in the space to know IT or types of technology or solutions. And just try to hire a cyber person these days. Mark, it's because of the demand and the reality we face. We invest heavily in having that skill set, both grow within and hire them outside. And so start there. Start with companies like Acronym that have done this, have repeated this with customers that have, the case studies and the results to show.
Where does what let's get a little personal for a second here, John.
Yeah.
What does John Papadakis do to protect himself just at home? Like, do you use a VPN at your home, on your regular ISP? Should people have it? It's a common question we get. Like, should I be using a VPN on my home connection that I feel is secure? What are common practices that you do personally?
Yeah, the VPN I think is a must. It's no longer just you log on to one of your your apps and it's touting some kind of VPN tool. Absolutely a must. So I use VPN. I do not log into anything without multi-stage authentication. In fact, I've lost count on how many digits we have to actually authenticate and then through an authenticator. And it seems like, that's the right thing to do. And Mark, there's a big difference between having, for example, an 8-digit authentication versus a 16 or a 32, right? So those are two very critical tools that I use. I'm also, as I said, partly paranoid. And so I back up everything. I have multiple forms of backup on the cloud with large, respectable companies that I know invest billions and hundreds of billions of dollars around security. So all those things that I mentioned, I have more than one level of survivability and redundancy. In my business, also because of the role that I'm in, I also have multiple ways of connecting wirelessly. So I have, again, you're going to think, wow, so when he said paranoid, he really means it.
I don't see a tinfoil hat. So
multiple SIMs on multiple phones.
Okay.
But also, I'm a CEO of a company that I need to be able to communicate with my customers. If, say, one of the big three has an issue somewhere and they're taken down, I need to be able to respond and take care of things on behalf of our customers. The other piece is constant. I do think that the tools you choose matter. As I mentioned, collaboration tools that also have constant ability to save and communicate to the people you're interacting with. So you're on the same platform. You're not discrete. That's important. So we use the obvious tools, with the big brands,
like
and then
Microsoft
devices,
365s of the world, and
all of that. The Microsofts, absolutely, bang on. And then the other pieces of it is devices that my employees have are only company devices that have gone through rigor of A, purchasing, B, securing it with the right software, and having all the layers of authentication that go with it. Not Mark and John bought something off of Amazon and I decided to attach it because we're a little tech savvy. It's not coming onto the network.
So you're not a fan of BYOD?
No, I'm not. And I'm a techie at heart. So you got to understand my struggle.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Listen, I look around me. I've got about 7 different phones that I'm playing with at a given point in time.
Right. So at home, I'm for my personal use, I'm a Mac guy. At work, I'm not a Mac guy. So I have to use whatever's right for that company, and it's for the right reasons. And even when we travel, you should have a protocol of when you travel and when you're out of country and who knows about it. And so that way, when there's anything suspicious, it's not only picked up by your security algorithms, but your security group already knows that, hey, John is in this country, in this location. Those are all just part of the culture that I refer to.
Makes sense. I like it. I should tell that to a couple of my clients who love the whole BYOD phase. With Acronym, where do people get in touch with you, John? I'd keep you here for another hour, by the way. I could talk your brain off, but we can do that for another time. But where do people get in touch with you, and where do they start when it comes to working with Acronym?
By the way, likewise, I really enjoy the conversation. I'm so passionate about this. I too can go on for hours on it. This is what we do. It's the best place is to hit. We're on most of the proper socials. So LinkedIn, Acronym has a page on LinkedIn. Acronymsolutions.com exists. Our website, we have so much information on there. White papers, talks more about what it is that we do, who, the kind of space that we're in. Those are fantastic places to get a hold of us on. We have, like Jeannie and others I have such a wonderful marketing group that they have us connected into all of the proper channels to reach us. And of course, on our site, there's actually numbers you can call and people answer the phone.
Wow.
And it's not an AI bot.
I think we'll be relying on those kind of, human beings for quite some time. I think we're good with that. Before I let you go, John, I want to ask you one quick takeaway, which is if there was one cybersecurity myth that you wish people would stop believing, what would that be?
That's a great question. I think the myth you already touched on. The myth is that cybersecurity is only for big companies to worry about. As an individual and as a small player, nobody's going to care about me. They're not coming after me. Wrong. Everyone. It's part of your world and it will only get more complex. So reach out and do something either through companies like ours or get educated and find which other companies can help you.
John, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. You're going to have to come back. We're going to continue this conversation. We're going to find another excuse to chat, okay?
I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
John Papadakis from Acronym Solutions. Thank you guys for being with us each and every single week. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your social media platforms. It is @YourTechReport, and shoot us an email. contact@yourtechreport.com. Back with you next week.
You've been tuned in to Your Tech Report. Join us again next week for another edition. And be sure to follow Your Tech Report online. Email us, contact@yourtechreport.com. Follow us on Twitter @YourTechReport. Like us on Facebook.com.